Hi everybody, I'm here with Melanie Kwok from Sino Group again. Just wanted to kind of continue our conversation around on ESG in the sector, but also in your group specifically. Now, as a very large property holder, right, and managing a lot of construction projects, one of the questions that I've always had is how has the introduction of ESG and ESG principles kind of changed the way that a property management company or well, basically a group like yours, which has so many different properties, how has that changed the way that your teams operate? And is it something new, or are there things that are new, or things that are developing that are maybe even challenges that are you're trying to figure out how to implement them going forward?
Yeah, well, as a real estate developer, we look into things, right? New buildings where we will explore low carbon construction materials like eco bricks. And then for existing buildings, that's the challenge in itself, because existing building itself, there is not a lot to do because there's already construction back many, many years ago. And there are some very old buildings as well. So it actually means that a developer do need to spend more efforts to look into how we can upgrade the existing building into a more ESG building related. In Hong Kong right now, for those not familiar with Hong Kong, we do have the BEAM, which is talking about the green building certifications. Because as you know, that greenwashing is a big issue right now. We cannot just say, oh, I plant a tree, I have a green wall, therefore my building is green. It doesn't work like that anymore. It has to have a proof to say that certain building achieve a standard. So at Sino Group, first of all, we do set visions to have most of our buildings, especially wholly owned buildings, to at least achieve BEAM Gold and above, and a lot of our buildings already achieve that. And second is to achieve international sustainability building standards, and that is a building standards called WELL, W-E-L-L. WELL actually very emerging, not in Hong Kong but internationally, and the reason is because of COVID. During COVID, where everybody really put a hit on everybody internationally, we see a demand in wellness. So particularly in Hong Kong, we see that a lot of our tenants, because of the COVID, they are worried about getting fresh air. They really want to get some fresh air a little bit, and they don't want to wear a mask all the time. So because of the COVID, we see there's a new trend called wellness in ESG building terminology. So we take this opportunity to look into all our buildings in Sino Group, and we have this idea called Farm Together, where opportunities allow when the construction is safe enough, we build farms at the rooftops. And when I talk about farm, I don't mean like big rural farms, but at least big plantation area with different vegetations. We have some of them very cool. Actually, we have a farm where they have like 100 different types of tomato that actually some species nobody see before. And then we have a farm that really attracts butterfly. We don't capture them, but especially have special species that attracts butterflies so that people can go up and see, oh wow, Hong Kong has so many beautiful butterflies. So we work with like-minded partners. Hong Kong has so many talents that knows fermentations very well as well. So we work with them, and then and we build different kinds of farms, the 22 farms in Hong Kong and Singapore, and definitely was built during pandemic. So this is one example where there's the differences as well, is to look into the wellness, instilling wellness features in a so-called green building. And then the secondly is that Hong Kong, as you know, is an area where we do impact from the extreme weather. Looking at the past few years, we're hit by typhoons, black rain, and it's sort of like an alarm to developers to look into the climate risk. So as a real estate developer, we can't just look at the opportunities, we also bear in mind with the climate risk. So we work with like-minded consultants to conduct a climate risk exercise covering over 200 properties in our portfolio. And then for those that are identified as properties that might have higher risk to face with the climate risk, we have to spend extra effort and investment to instill the climate resilience features. So for instance, at our Fullerton Ocean Park Hotel, the hotel was built right next to the sea. So we knew the climate risk would be high, because if you imagine the extreme weather that comes as well. So what we did was that we have to spend extra investment to look into building floodgate barrier, and we have to look into the climate change impact as well. That's why our hotels at the Fullerton Ocean Park was built at a higher level to actually withstand the strong wind as well. So with that in mind, I think it's also a message to tell everybody that don't just look into the opportunity, but with the climate change happening, developers like us also need to look at the climate risk and therefore investing to look into building more climate resilience features.
Yeah, and you mentioned greenwashing and how, in your words, like that's can't be how it's done anymore. I think we know that means that a lot of data is necessary so that we can have some level of transparency. And so I'm just curious, as a property development firm, how do you collect and manage data, and how is that integrated into your ESG team initiatives?
Well, up to today, we have to work almost with all departments in the Sino Group, different regions as well. And up to today, we have to collect over 1,400 ESG data sitting at our system. So very importantly is to have engaged verifier and external consultants to verify the data, because very often we found that the challenges is not collecting data, but whether the colleague or the department understand what the exact data we're asking for. Especially ESG is an international language. Sometimes when we have to translate into local languages, not everybody could understand. So we, underneath these ESG data collection behind the scene, we actually have to do some specific training to some respective departments to tell them why are we collecting circular data, what examples of data we're collecting, and also to teach them how to collect the data. So actually I would say that one of the challenge is not collecting data per se, is actually to verify the data and look at the data whether it's accurate, because if we were to publish any data, we need to make sure the data is accurate. And we can't be the only one that determine whether it's accurate. We have to find external parties to look into it for us as well. And how to reduce the inaccuracy is actually via training. So we have to use a lot of methodologies to train our colleagues how to collect the data as well. But I see that with more and more online ESG data tool coming in, I think it will make the data collection easier. And we do develop our own online ESG data collections as well. And also, for instance, once we know about certain ESG standards, we can just park in the formula and everybody can just park in. So I think with the technology merging, I think ESG data collection won't be as difficult as it used to be.
Yeah, well, that's a very optimistic perspective. I think that's great. As someone who has a few years of experience in real estate law, and so dealing with property managers, property developers, construction companies, etc., I also think it's probably fair to say that a lot of the people that are in your thousands of employees, this is probably very new for them. A lot of the people that we have, for example, in the estates team here at HAU, data collection is not something that in the past they've really had to deal with, or in terms of like aggregation and visualization and really analysis of the data and stuff. So I think it's very exciting that you feel optimistic about how the collection is getting better, the processing and analysis of that, and then hopefully verification continues to improve, because I think we're all going to benefit as a result of that.
Yes.